Welcome back. Taking your phone calls. 412-575-2600 is the number on the Bordas and Bordas hotline. Also taking your tweets at Josh Taylor HD. Got a couple on Twitter already. First question from Max, who says, Ben Roethlisberger looked rusty today. When do you expect him to pick it up? Next week might be a good time. I hope it's next week. They won't have a lot of time to figure this out because they got the Vikings coming in next week. Then they go to Chicago, and after they go to Chicago, they go to Baltimore. And you can't go into Baltimore having your passing game out of sorts. Now, granted, we already know that these two teams play really tough games, and the Steelers don't play their cleanest games in Baltimore. So if things are already out of sorts now, you definitely want to get it cleaned up as soon as possible before you go into Baltimore and risk having any more problems. Let's go to the phone lines. We'll start with John in Greentree. John, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, man. How you doing, man? How you doing?
No problem. How you doing?
Hey, good win by the Steelers, man. What do you think that the Steelers did in that game that they won that game? And also, man, thanks for taking my call again. I need to know, can we beat Minnesota on Sunday? Thank you.
You can beat Minnesota as long as you don't make the same mistakes you did today. As long as you have a running game that's actually more effective, as long as you don't have penalties bogging you down left and right, as long as Max pointed out on Twitter, Ben Roethlisberger may be a little bit more consistent from first half to second half. The second half, he really did pick things up. But in the first half, missed a handful of short throws. He missed Le'Veon Bell a couple times. He missed Martavis Bryant once. So they got to clean up some things in order to beat Minnesota next week. The things they did right, the defense getting 7 sacks, that helped. Getting off the field on third down, that helped. A special teams touchdown off a block punt by Tyler Matakevich, that definitely helped. I thought that set the tone. Some really big plays by T.J. Watt. That interception was huge, deep in their own end to get them out of their own red zone and back moving towards the other way. I thought that helped out a lot. So when you are doing what you can to keep the other team out of the end zone, that does add up. Now the question is, can they do that more consistently in order to help the offense, and can the offense be more consistent as far as sustaining drives and getting points to make the defense's job a lot easier? What's to say what happens? Let's say if that game goes an extra 5 minutes. Let's say if the Steelers don't get the ball back with a few minutes left after run out the clock. Let's say there's 6 minutes left instead of maybe 3. Maybe that ball game ends differently. That there's some things that need to be cleaned up there in order to have a stronger effort next week against Minnesota. Let's go to J.D. in North Hills. JD, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, Josh, big fan of yours. How you doing tonight?
Appreciate it. How you doing?
Good. Question for you. Tallman said after the game something about Stefan Logan and his bicep injury. I mean, what do you make of that whole scenario since he signed the contract yesterday and everything?
Well, two things about that. It's a bad thing and it's a good thing. It's a good thing for Stefan Logan because just imagine if he hadn't signed that contract extension yesterday. He's now in a contract year in a season that may be lost. ESPN's Adam Schefter's reporting that the Steelers are worried that this could be a torn biceps injury, and if that's the case, he's done for the season. So just imagine if he hadn't signed that contract extension for 5 years yesterday, he would be in a contract year that he now misses the other 15 games and the playoffs of. So that really throws his status as far as how much he could potentially earn into doubt. So that's a blessing in disguise for him. However, the bad side of it is, let's say for the sake of argument, this report is true. Maybe it is a torn biceps. You lose Stefan Logan for the rest of the year and a guy who probably should have been a really key part of your defense. Let's go to Randy in Beaver Falls. Randy, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Yeah, how you doing, Josh?
Good, how are you?
Good. I just want to talk a little Le'Veon Bell. I mean, the dude is in good shape and he's great and everything, but he should have been in training camp, really. And I just want to say, I have a shout-out to my girlfriend, Rhonda Ray.
I hope Rhonda's watching. Otherwise, I don't want that to work out badly for you. So, hey, Rhonda, I hope you're watching. Enjoy your evening. On the Le'Veon Bell tip, it's hard for me to look at what we saw and not think that maybe an extra week might have helped. Just 1 week. Maybe if he comes in before the last preseason game, maybe that 1 week makes a difference. Just to get things tuned up a bit. Just to get in a game situation, go over a couple plays, a brief walkthrough, if you will, maybe a couple plays, a series or two against Carolina at Bank of America Stadium. Maybe things look a little bit different. Now, I'm not willing to put all of it on him. And I know Mike Tomlin was really quick to put other factors as to why things didn't go well. He's not entirely wrong there. The offensive line did not have their strongest game today. And not to mention the fact that penalties were a big deal. When you're dealing with second and longs and third and longs, it does limit your ability to call run plays because now you have to throw the ball to try to make up the yardage that you've lost with penalties. But I think you have a point there. Just an extra week of training camp, I think, makes a world of difference in today's game. Let's go to Gil in Johnstown. Gil, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, Josh, thanks. I got to tell you, you're really the doctor of doom here tonight. I mean,
am I really?
They won the game. It was a divisional game. It was on the road.
On the road against Cleveland.
Any win in the NFL is good.
On the road against Cleveland.
They won.
On the road against Cleveland. That's the kicker. That's the important part.
Josh, let me ask you a question. Did you ever feel, during that game, that the Steelers were going to lose that game?
No.
I never did.
No.
I never thought they were going to lose that game.
I didn't. But here's the difference. Let's say that's not Cleveland. And thank you for the call. But let's say that's not Cleveland. Let's say they're doing that against Minnesota next week. Let's say they're doing that in Chicago in 2 weeks. Let's say
Minnesota stinks.
Minnesota's Cleveland. Cleveland stinks too. Let's say that happens in 3 weeks. But let's see that happens in 3 weeks against Baltimore. Are you willing to accept it then?
Ben played about 10 plays in the preseason to prevent injuries.
So you're okay. So you're okay with what you saw today. You're telling me you're okay with what you saw today.
By 20 points
I never said that. I said, are you okay with what you saw today? Are you really okay with this offense? Are you really okay with Martavis Bryant?
I felt like we were going to lose that game.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. Now, to this point, imagine if they go on the road to Chicago in 2 weeks and play like that. Imagine if they go on the road to Baltimore in 3 weeks and play like that. Do you really think they win those games? And people keep telling me Minnesota's terrible. Imagine if they look like that at home against Minnesota. A better team wins that game. And it doesn't have to be that much of a better team considering they faced Cleveland. A better team takes advantage of those mistakes, and not even a much better team, only a slightly better team. Maybe a team that doesn't have a rookie at quarterback. Maybe a team that has their best pass rusher without an ankle injury and actually available in that game. A better team wins that game today. That's what should concern you. Yes, they got to win. Yes, they're 1-0. That's fine. But if they keep this up in the next 3 weeks, it's going to look a lot worse than 1-0 in a couple weeks. Let's go to Joe in Bridgeville. Joe, you're on Nightly Sports Call.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I want to talk about Antonio Brown.
Let's do. He was the bright spot of this game for me.
Did you see some of the catches that he made? He made a catch that was deflected 5 yards in front of him for a first down.
That was the big turning point in the game, too.
The crucial point of the game. He was held twice on the same play.
Yes.
And made a first down.
Yes.
And then he caught the penultimate catch that sealed the game.
Yes.
And people dog him all the time.
I totally
agree
with you.
In football.
I'm with you. I totally agree with you. You are totally right. AB made 3 plays that not only turned the tide in this game, but really defined the offense in this game. That pass off the tip pass that you talked, that catch he made, imagine if that doesn't happen. That's the play that finally got the offense rolling and led to their first touchdown. The one play where he gets held and makes the catch with one arm, 9 out of 10 receivers don't make that catch. The catch that sealed the game, maybe that drive stalls out, and maybe Cleveland gets the ball back down 3 points with a couple minutes left with a chance to tie it. Antonio Brown, I would argue Antonio Brown was the difference that the offense made in order to win this game. It's much closer than people are making it out to be. We'll take a break. We'll answer some more phone calls when we come back. Stick around.